This morning, I remember what an incredibly blessed life I live, and how many gifts I've been given in my life. And I'm clear that very high up on that list of gifts is the gift of our son, Mateo. Zed and I had been together for 20 years before Mateo came along. And for fully 15 of those years, we'd really been wanting to have a child. Because I'd had a vasectomy early in our relationship, we couldn't have a child. So we explored all the options, tried vasectomy reversal twice, tried various kinds of enhancements, we tried adopting, we put the word out to the universe, we want to adopt a child, the universe said, great, and sent the child to us to be adopted. He died in utero. A year later, we asked again, well, send us a child to be adopted. The universe said, yes, no problem. Another child came. It was wonderful. It was born. And on the day it was born, his birth mother decided she didn't want to send it out for adoption after all. We were crushed. And pretty much given up on the concept of having a child. And then Valentine's Day, 1999, I got this clear meditation that there was part of me that had been resisting being a father. Responsibility, running away, and not knowing how to be, and that kind of relationship with my wife. If a child were to come along, and so I did this deep meditation, blah, 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 did some clearing out, and came to the awareness that I was ready, really ready to have a child, and made a Valentine's card for my wife saying, okay, let's make a space for a child. And you know, within 48 hours the phone rang. Y'all still want a baby? And my wife's mother's, neighbors, sisters, lawyers, paralegal knew a woman in her church.
Go figure.
And this woman and her sister were both expecting babies. So the phone call was actually, y'all want some babies? Well, as it turned out, Mateo was born to a wonderful woman. Thanks for that reminder of what a wonderful sound it is to have a baby in the house. And it was good. We called Mateo Mateo because it comes from the Latin Mateus, meaning gift from God. And he clearly was a gift from God. And I'll remember to the day I die, standing in that birthing suite. Zed and I were both lucky enough to be in the birthing suite with the birthing mom. God sent us this amazing birth mother. Who's just been the most wonderful person throughout Mateo's life and in our lives. But anyway, we were there in the birthing suite with her, and she went into labor pains, and to be there watching the contractions. And any of you who've been through this process, you know why I'm tearing up and can't hardly talk. It's just so amazing. But we'd been waiting for years, and now this child was coming, and after this horrible screaming and convulsing thing this woman did, I can hardly suddenly these fingers came out between her, these 5 amazing fingers. And now, I gotta tell you, I've been a professional guitarist for 20 years beforehand, and I've got stubby little fingers. And when I first saw those hands come out, I thought, wow, look at those long fingers. That one could play piano or guitar, no problem. Oh, wait, back to the work. And then for the longest time, maybe it was 5 hours, maybe it was 5 seconds, I don't know, but for the longest time, all that was out was his fingers. And then gradually, the arm, and then the head, and all that hair. But still, it took forever. It took hours, days, weeks for this child to finally come out. old and let them old. They're his parents. and that awesome feeling of joy and fear and responsibility and love. Gosh, I had no idea that it could all happen so quickly. That was one birth. Every one of us here is here because we had birthed something like that. But something even more amazing is happening on the planet right now. There's a new birth happening among us. And what is being born is a new human. Not an individual, not one Christ, not one Muhammad, not one Buddha, but the great universal Christ, Buddha, Goddess. There is emerging in new human form in a way that's exciting beyond excitement. This human is not Homo sapiens, not Homo sapiens sapiens, but Homo universalis, the new universal human with capacities for love and connection and caring and omniscience beyond anything we've known. He, she, it is walking among us now. And it's hard to comprehend. You and I grew up with scientific textbooks which said that, well, most of us grew up with scientific textbooks that said there was a story of evolution that started with the great ape family, the hominids, some 4 or 5 million years ago, and then 1.5 million years ago, Homo habilis somehow diverged from the hominid family, from the great ape family, and suddenly there was an erect being on the planet. And somehow we don't know how, but there was this tiny little timeline in our science textbooks that said that after Homo habilis there was Homo erectus, and then somehow in there Neanderthal emerged, and somehow Neanderthal died out, and then there was, now we know, Homo, what's it called again? Homo Heidelbergensis. And then just a month ago, did you guys read this about Homo rudolphus? Really? Homo rudolphus, another evolutionary stage, another link toward the missing link, has appeared somewhere back there. But in the tidiness and the neatness of that linear timeline that's graphed in the textbooks, we somehow missed that it was that how these different iterations of the genus Homo emerged isn't quite clear. It's not quite discrete. They existed at the same time. And then one would gradually die out as a stronger, better, more adaptive characteristics of the other iteration of Homo would continue. And now we have Homo sapiens, and in the last 12,000 years or so, we have a calling toward Homo sapiens sapiens, the one who knows that he knows, Homo sapiens sapiens. Okay, in our midst right now, there is another Homo that has been being born and is becoming manifest in our children, and people throughout the world are feeling a vague calling toward a new way of being, because the way that Homo sapiens sapiens is no longer the highest evolutionary fit for what's coming next. I pause. Let me stop the action right there. Homo universalis is emerging out of the womb, and just the fingernail of the fingertips is showing. And there are some of us who see that and who are acknowledging it, who are starting to maybe even be that. But stop the action to rewind and acknowledge that I've told some of this story before in the Celebration Circle. Those of you who've been coming for a while have heard me talk about the universal human and about conscious evolution. But today and for the next 9 weeks, I'm going to be discussing this birth and the consciousness behind it, process of conscious evolution, very systematically over a 10-week period, because it's time. Because all over the planet people are telling the story. Because I just finished the 3-month training on it a couple of months ago, and I have a whole new volume of material, but mostly because there are an increasing number of us who are living with pain and anxiety and just the noise in our culture which saying panic, crisis, death, destruction, mosquitoes, viruses, terrorism, financial collapse, Greece, Spain, Italy. It used to be those other countries, but now we're talking Germany and England and Ireland and maybe America. Their monetary system is going to collapse, and then what? Oh, and solar flare spots are going to happen, and our electrical system is going to wipe out. All over the place, there is this rising crescendo, this awareness that there is chaos, that the old system is breaking down. And more of my people are bleeding and hurting and worrying and getting depressed. And so I'm coming out of the closet and saying, I'm a new ape. And I see new apes all around me. And I'm calling you forth, and I'm going to do it through this series of 10 weeks. I say 10 weeks is a celebration circle. You might get tired of it after 6 weeks and I have to adjust my plan. Or I might get inspired and talk for 12 weeks or 15. I also want to be clear that what I'm talking about is based on a rising body of evidence throughout the planet. That there are many, many people being called to this process of conscious evolution and the awareness of this new human emerging in our midst. But there's only one way of seeing the world. I'm not telling you it's the way to see. This is a celebration circle. There is no one way. It's not the right way. It's not my way. And there is another way of seeing the world that is hopeful, that sees chaos as being absolutely vital to the birth of this new human, who understands that this death and depression and financial chaos around us is not a problem. It is the only way that the egg can crack for the new human to emerge out of it. The shell must break for the new human to come. The mama had to scream in pain for what seemed like hours before a mountain with hail could emerge. There was no shortcut. It had to happen. Okay. So I'm asking you, is it all possible? Come every week for the next couple of weeks as we build this awareness, because it's going somewhere. There are forces coming together for your good all over the planet, and they want to support you in consciousness, but they require for you to be willing to step out of the old and think about it in new ways. Okay? The material I'm talking about is based in my case, on the work of Barbara Marx Hubbard. Her most recent books are Emergence and Birth 2012 and Beyond. The website is evolve.org. There are many other prominent psychologists, philosophers, thinkers writing about this. Gene Houston is one. Lynn McTaggart, Ken Wilber. There's so much information out there. And that's just information. It's just ideas. It's just websites and readings and more data. What's really called for is increasing numbers of us to meet at the vibrational level and agree. We are ready to move beyond living in fear and to live from a place of enoughness and trust and knowing that something good and whole and powerful is emerging in our midst. And that all the moaning and all the complaining about the need to go back to time better, back to a time when a man was a man and a gun was a gun, and we knew the difference between a man with a gun and a man without a gun. I'm sorry I listened to both conventions. I'm They're good people. They love their wives, their mamas. They love God. They love their country. I get it. But they're talking about a system which is gone. Bye-bye! A system where we just need to buy more widgets and have more guns to protect our widgets that we're buying in order to what? To have more widgets and protect ourselves more? No, sorry. There's another way coming. And it's not Democratic or Republican. It's not partisan. It's a way of the heart. So, fully aware that the Celebration Circle is a 501c3 set up that way so we can accept your donations and continue working as a nonprofit. We are a church. I can't speak politics. I'm not talking politics. This is beyond politics. Forget politics. Vote. Vote. By all means, vote. Be a responsible citizen. But what we're asked to do is vote not with our ballot, but with our dollars, with our belief system, with our hopes, with our prayers. Okay. Before I can talk about the birth of the new human, I have to talk about the birth of the new creation story, because that's really what's happening in our midst. There's a new creation story. Before we can understand the new creation story, you have to understand and agree that there's an old creation story that we've all grown up with. In the Judeo-Christian Islamic world, we all have agreed that in the beginning was the Word. In the beginning was dark and formless, and then some God in 7 days or 7 billion years, 7 epochs, we don't know, but created the land, and then separated the water and the earth, and then there were the beasts, and then there was the seeds, and then on the 6th day there was a man and then a woman, and then they had temptation, and then they had a tree, and they weren't supposed to eat of it. And once they ate of it, they were sinners. And once they were sinners, they had no choice but to what? Work, to toil by the sweat of their brow, to get good enough and work hard enough to get back to paradise. In short, the story we were given is that we were born of people who are flawed and evil, and the only way to redemption is to work hard, to think hard, and keep progressing back and back and back through rationality and hard work and dominion over the earth to somehow get to a place where everything was going to be good again. Because, why? Because the earth had been created, it was fixed, it was done, and then the people spoiled it, and now we're going to have to fix it again through hard work. That was the story. And it's a perfectly good story. It's lasted really well for thousands of years. Unfortunately, it has at its logical consequence, at its logical conclusion, the notion that there is inevitable progress made by intellectual capacity to build, separate from the earth, separate from God. God is out there and created everything and is watching over us somehow, but it's our job to make things happen. And the way we've made things happen are really good. It gave us computers and cars and TVs and bigger, better houses that are air conditioned. Thank God for that. And we've come into a place where we have developed God-like powers to build life, to create life, to destroy life, and we don't know what to do with it. That's basically what's happening in the breakdown of the old order. We have built and built and built, and our buildings are crumbling up against each other from sheer density and sheer competing ego needs to prove that my building is bigger and better and stronger and more American than yours. And America's better than them Europeans, better than Arabs, better than Chinks. Because although Chinks over there, their big buildings and their guns, they're bad buildings, bad guns. Only our buildings, our guns are good. And by golly, it appears that the Chinese think the same about the Americans, and the Russians think the same about the Americans and the Chinese. And that story cannot sustain itself. Now we've all got guns, all got buildings, all got rockets, all got tear gas, all got drones, all got drones. Right now, we're the only ones who got drones, but that ain't gonna last long. Oh boy, everybody gets drones. Okay. So, what's happening is that in the midst of all of that, we've been given another gift, you and I. This is This is so exciting, and you already know it. The gift is we've been given the gift of cultural relativity. We now understand ours isn't the only creation story. It's a good story. It's a big story. It's a powerful story for our culture. But cultures throughout the world have had creation stories that were big and powerful and allowed them to build pyramids that would last forever or until they crumbled. Would allow them to build big empires. They could put walls all around Europe and around Rome. They could go for thousands of miles. They could stretch all the way to China. Big walls that would last forever in their creation story. What we now know is that the creation story is a matter of choice, and we are free to choose a new creation story. And the story that is emerging in our midst, I'm all wound up. The story that's emerging in our midst says quite simply, based on the latest scientific evidence, it says it isn't that creation got done and that humans messed it up and we've got to fix it. The truth is, creation is still happening. It's always been happening. We're still evolving. Life is miraculously blossoming all around us. And you and I have the opportunity to breathe into a creation story that says we are just the beginning of our creative powers. And that as we move beyond being simply intellectual beings who are somehow subservient to a God out there that is judgmental and fixed and powerful out there, you and I are invited to embrace a God that dwells within, a God that is omniscient within us, is calling forth our intellect, our intuition, our richness, our deep connection to ourselves and each other across national boundaries, across political boundaries, across age boundaries, deep into a place where we are one. And there is enough for us all. Breathe into that with me. Breathe into the awareness that there is nothing to fear, nothing to hide, nothing to protect. The ongoing story of conscious evolution is a story where we are conscious of evolution happening all around us and within us. And we are invited to be conscious of our consciousness and to choose to use that consciousness to build bridges and tear down walls and dare to step into mystery, because that's really what conscious evolution calls us to let go of certainty in our need to figure things out and to build bigger, better, higher bridges and trust funds and retirement homes on golf courses and start living from a place of mystery, of not needing to know whether Social Security is going to be there tomorrow or not. And not needing to know about retirement plans, which may or may not be there, but instead needing to know, how am I vital today? How does what I do affect you, and how does what you do affect me? And how can we, each one of us, take back our power as co-creative individuals, living a life of joy, and wonder, and celebration, and connection. Deep connection. Right on cue, here they are. They're the ones who are going to show us. We need to get out of the way and support them, help them. They already know. These little ones, these children of ours. So, next week we'll talk about some of the specifics of the hows. What it means to be a human who is choosing to be universal, a homo universalis. Because this kind of evolution is conscious. You get to choose. See, the lizards didn't get to choose whether they were going to give up to the reptiles. The dinosaurs didn't get to choose whether they were going to exist into the next epoch. But we get to choose. Are we going to be among those who die out because we're rigid, or holding on and fearful? Or are we going to be among those who live in joy and peace and wonder? That's my question, and I'm sticking.